Good morning, it's day 3, and as you see, woolly hat, everything. It's actually feeling like -2 today. Normal temperature is 2 degrees. It's an early start, it's about 6:30 in the morning. We're just walking it to a cemetery that we found. It's about 400 yards from where we're living. Going to go pay our respects to a Bellahouston boy and a footballer there. So as I said, early start for us at 6:30 this morning, and it's a bit nippy. So yeah. Talk to you more when we get there. So here we are at the Albert Community Cemetery in Stenshire. Quite a large one, dedicated to the military forces, or to the military here, along with the main town cemetery. I said in here to find a footballer and a Bellahouston boy, which we will do now.
Private Oswald Hay was the son of Mr and Mrs John Hay, late of 17 Donnelly Gardens, Ibrox, Glasgow. He left the academy in 1907, and the following year the family went to Vancouver. Here he continued his education, and he became a sergeant in the St Andrew's Church Boys Brigade and in the 72nd Seaforth Highlanders Cadet Battalion. In July 1915 in Vancouver, he joined the 62nd Battalion of the Canadians and was later transferred to the 3rd Canadian Pioneers, with whom he came to France in March 1916. On October the 1st of the same year, he was killed in action at Courcelette on the Somme. He was 18 years old, a former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow.
So here we've found, sorry, a bit cold this morning and I'm struggling to find the names, but it's Edward Bell, MC, who actually played for Palace, Portsmouth, Southampton and South Hamborough. Also won the Military Cross and died in March 1918. So here we are, Quarry Quay Cemetery, Quay Quarry Cemetery. As you say, very early in the morning, still a little frost as the sun's coming up there, and we're here to pay our respects to a Bellahouston boy. This one is in the bottom of the valley, and as you can see, it's a little bit far out. So yeah, we're just going to enter here and find our Bellahouston ex-pupil.
Private John Hutchison of 10 Stanley Street, Craigton, youngest son of Mr J. H. Hutchison, was a medical student in his first year when, in November 1915, he enlisted in the 9th HLI. He went to France in July 1916 and was killed at T Trench on August the 26th by the bursting of a shell during his first day in the trenches. Private Hutchison was widely known as a splendid all-round athlete. He was school champion in 1915. While training at Ripon and Richmond, he won numerous prizes in regimental or battalion sports. He was 21 years of age, a former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow.
So here we are at our next stop, as we are picking up some of the ones that we are a little bit behind, but this is Caterpillar Valley. We're due to visit here yesterday. We got waylaid somewhere else, and we're here to pay our respects to another Bellahouston boy. And as we come in here, they also have a memorial wall here as well over the far side, but he is actually buried here. So we'll go in and we will look for him.
Private Robert M. Cherry, 19, was the only son of Mr and Mrs Cherry, 191 Copeland Road, Ibrox. He left school in November 1915 to join the Glasgow Highlanders. After training at Ripon, he got his desire and was sent to France in the autumn of 1916. He took part in the severe fighting round Beaumont Hamel at the end of that year. After a period of 2 months, during which no news could be obtained by his parents, he was officially reported killed in action on November the 1st, 1916. A fine scholar and good athlete, Private Cherry was a general favourite throughout the school. Just before his enlistment, he had been elected captain of the school football team, in which, for some seasons, he had been one of the most outstanding players. A former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow.
So we've just had a look, and that is the memorial wall, is the New Zealand memorial. Quite hard to see there with the sun coming up, but that is actually the New Zealand memorial. So here at our next stop, Bellahouston La Petite, and again, this early in the morning my French is being tested. So Bellahouston La Petite, as we walk up, a little side right next to some houses, just behind some houses. So we walk up here, going to pay our respects to a Bellahouston Academy boy, so we've arrived at the main bit of Bellahouston La Petite. Smallish sort of average size one, a little bit out of the way, so we're going to head in now.
Lance Corporal David Wright Struthers, 23, son of Mr and Mrs John Struthers, 33 Nixdale Road, Pollock Shields, Glasgow, graduated MA in 1914, and at the close of his training as a teacher joined the 17th HLI in March 1915. He was wounded in the arm at the beginning of the Battle of the Somme, July 1916. Sent back from hospital in France, he was transferred to the 6th King's Own Scottish Borderers and promoted to Lance Corporal. On October the 19th, he was killed by shell fire in Mametz Woods. A former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow.
So here we've arrived at Cambrai Memorial. Does actually look as if the actual memorial is closed, but we're here to pay respects to some footballers and quite a few VC winners. But obviously if we can't gain access to it, we've sort of seen over the fence, and yeah, we possibly could jump over, but we're not going to do that. But to be respectful, it is closed. Very impressive here on the side of the road. Well, we had. Just read this inscription in case you can't see it. To the glory of God and the enduring memory of 7,040 officers and men of the forces of the British Empire who fell at the Battle of Cambrai, 20th of November to the 3rd of December 1917, but who have no known grave. Their names are here recorded. So that is the Cambrai Memorial. There is a small cemetery there again, which we can't actually get down to. I'm standing on the side of the wall, but just to give you an idea of it, I believe it doesn't open till 9 o'clock, I've been told, maybe, but it's all locked up, so we'll just do a little bit in a second. Well, we did manage to find there was a small side entrance that we got into, and this is the wall of remembrance. Now, as I say, we have quite a few on here. What I think we will do is we'll just stand, I'll take a video of it, and we'll just mention their names as we go around the wall of the 7,048 that died at the Battle of Cambrai.
Timothy Idwal Hope Evans played for Dundee and Hibs. Tom Hargreaves played for Southampton. Edward Arthur James Stallard played for West Ham. Reginald Leaf Turnell played for Glossop.
And now we move on with Victoria Cross winners. We have Frederick Johnson, Walter Stone, Frederick Dancox, Richard Wayne, George Clare, and Alistair McReady Dermid. All of these glorious Victoria Cross winners, and we've just paid our respects to. Okay, so we've pulled up into this little small village, and right on the corner of the junction we found our next cemetery. This one is really going to test me with my French, which is Sans les Marcoing. I'm going with that. Don't know if it's correct, but there you go, you can see what it is. And again, it's a small one. It's right on the junction, and we're looking here, we have a Bellahouston boy is buried here. Quite a lot of these look like mass graves, as you can see, with the stones all joined together. There's 5 rows of mass graves, and then there's individual graves. So we'll head in and find who we're looking for.
Private William Murray Sloan was the youngest son of the late Baillie Robert Sloan and of Mrs Sloan, 1 Sherbrooke Avenue, Pollock Shields. When war broke out, he was engaged in farming in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. At the beginning of 1915, he joined the 51st Canadian Infantry, and after training at Edmonton, his battalion came to England and finished their training at Bramshott. He was sent to France early in 1916 and was attached to the 48th Canadian Highlanders. After the attack on Vimy Ridge, he was invalided home to England with trench fever. Returning to France a month or 2 later, he rejoined his regiment, and after taking part in some very stiff fighting, he was badly gassed in March 1918 at the beginning of the Big Push. At the end of August of that year, he once more returned to France and was killed in action near Cambrai on the 27th of September 1918, a former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow.
So he's one of those soldiers that is, you can see, buried in a mass grave. So here at our next cemetery, a quaint road cemetery, rather large one, just sitting down in the bottom of the valley. Got the cross, and it leads in. I've got some gentlemen here from the Commonwealth Graves Commission doing work, tending the gowns. Very, very beautiful. So we'll head in. We've got a VC winner, we've got one for the Cope Bridge War Memorial, and we've got ourselves a Bellahouston boy as well.
Private George Watson was the son of Mr. and Mrs. Thomas G. Watson, Sen Hoy, Maryland Gardens, Cardonald. After leaving the academy, he studied at the Royal Technical College. He was apprenticed with the Anchor Line Shipping Company as an electrical engineer and gave promise of a brilliant career. In 1917, he joined the Ayrshire Imperial Yeomanry, but was afterwards attached to the RSF. He proceeded to France early in 1918, where at the age of 19, he was killed in action at Gouzencourt on September the 2nd, a former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow.
Captain Percy Cherry, an Australian who won the VC with taking a village and holding it under immense pressure. He was injured, and then in the morning he got injured but continued to stay at his post until shell fire took his life. He was only 21 at the time of his death. So we've just done Quent Road. We're now heading here to Quent Communal Cemetery, which has got a British extension. It's up to the side of the main town cemetery, and here we've got quite a few as well, where we have a Bellahouston boy, we have a VC winner, and we also have a footballer as well, Scottish footballer I believe. So we'll head in here and we'll find them. And here, as you see, the main bit of the main cemetery is there from the town, and then we come in to the British extension. So here we have VC winner Samuel Honey, who, winning the VC, he rushed a machine gun post single-handedly and captured all 10 Germans. He then held that post with his platoon for the rest of the day, countering 4 or repelling 4 counterattacks. That happened 3 days before his death on the 30th of September 1918. Here we have footballer John Monteith, who played for Queen's Park.
Captain Kenneth McAlpin Ross, RAMC, was the second son of the late Dr. Ross, Paisley Road West, and of Mrs. Ross, 64 Clifford Street, Ibrox. Ken, as he was always affectionately known at school and university, was an all-round athlete and a man of most winning personality. He's a member of the team which won the Sladden Swimming Trophy in 1906 and a noted player in the historic team which won the secondary school's football championships in 1909. While at university, he continued to share the successes of his former pupils team. In 1915, he graduated MB, CHB and joined up in the RAMC. In 1916, he received his captaincy and acted as medical officer to the 20th Lancashire Fusiliers. After a year in France, he was invalided at home. In August 1918, he volunteered for further service in France and was attached to the 1st and the 5th HLI. Had he been out scarcely a month when he was severely wounded near Mouvres and died a few hours later. Dr. Ross, who was 26 years of age, was married in November 1917 to Miss Kitty MacLeod, Easton Villa, Govan, a former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow.
So we're heading up this little dirt track. We've parked the car a little bit back down the way, so we head up. We did pass it off the main road and it's sitting just up here on the right, which is where we're heading up to now. Copse Cemetery, where we've got a Victoria Cross winner and a footballer. So we'll pick it back up when we get near to the cemetery. So eventually got to it. Little, as I say, just perched here on a little dirt track, which is the, again my pronunciation, Vrarcots Copse. So going in here, as I said, we're going to look for a small one as we come up and in. It's been quite noisy out there, but as you come into this, it just becomes very, very peaceful, very quiet. So here we have Edward Bullen, footballer who played for Bury. Here we have the Victoria Cross winner, Hugh McIver, private. He was a runner for the Royal Scots, and while single-handedly he pursued an enemy scout into a machine gun post, and having killed 6 of the garrison, he captured a further 20 men and 2 machine guns. Later on, at his own risk, he averted a British tank firing on its own men in error, and he was killed on the 2nd of September 1918. He actually did win the Victoria Cross on the 23rd of August of the same year. So here we are pulling up into, again, today has been a day where my French has been tested, and probably tested to the worst because I've not been very good at it. So here we are at Ecos Saint-Men. I'll try that one. Ecos Saint-Men British Cemetery. Again, a little small one just off the side of the road. Probably only got 50 men, 50 souls in here, I would say. Just looking to try and get in. At the moment it is closed. so it looks like I'm going to just have to lean over the barrier without tripping and get myself into it. So, not a very big one, probably 60, 70 maybe, as we go and find our Bellahouston boy. Well, just as we've come into it and we've found him, just looking at this front row, or quite a few of the rows here, and the stones, there's actually 2 soldiers buried at each spot, including our one from Bellahouston Academy.
Private John Duff was the son of Mr and Mrs John Duff, 37 Wallace Grove Place, Glasgow. After leaving school in 1914, he was employed in the office of the Scottish Wholesale Cooperative Society. In July 1917, he joined the 55 Training Battalion at Kinross, where he spent the next 9 months. Transferred to the 15th RSF, he was drafted to France in April 1918, and after 5 months of active service there, he was killed on September the 2nd at Nouvelle, between Arras and Cambrai. He was buried in the communal cemetery at Écoust-Saint-Man. Private Duff was only 19 years of age, a former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow.
So here we are, we've come up out of the beaten way a little and through sort of little country lanes, country roads, into the middle of nowhere, and we've come across this one here. I'm going to say Cuge British Cemetery, Cuge, where we've got actually we've got a couple of VC winners in here, along with a footballer as well. So there's for my pronunciation. It's Cuge British Cemetery. And again, just amazing how they're just in the middle of nowhere, and people, you know, it does take you a little bit, but there we are. We'll go and look for our VC winners and footballer. So here we have Sidney James, footballer who played for Huddersfield Town. Here we have VC winner Horace Waller, who repelled German attacks twice in hand-to-hand combat, fighting first time for over an hour. When most of his comrades had fallen, he kept fighting on until it was slightly relieved. Later that evening, they attacked again, and again he fought for about a half hour before he was overwhelmed and killed. The other VC winner here is Arthur Henderson, VC, of the Argyll and Sunderland Highlanders. Again, he was injured early doors, but stayed with his men, fighting and repelling off the German attacks, which he did succeed in doing, which won him the VC, but sadly the following day he couldn't, and he was killed. So we eventually got here. Satnav was wanting to take us through little dirt tracks and mud off-roading, I think it wanted to take us, but yeah, we eventually got here to Lancop British Cemetery, where we're here to pay respects to a Bellahouston boy. Quite a large cemetery, albeit out in the middle of nowhere. It is a rather large holding or housing a very lot of soldiers.
Second Lieutenant Kenneth A. McIntosh was the elder son of Lieutenant McIntosh, Govan Police Force, and Mrs. McIntosh of 34 Somerton Road, Govan. On leaving the academy, where he had made a name for himself as a fine football player, he entered the office of Messrs. McAdam and Shaw, Chartered Accountants, 190 West George Street, and had served 3 years of his apprenticeship when war broke out. On the 3rd of September 1914, he joined the 1st Battalion of the 6th HLI, and on the the 24th of May 1915, he left with his battalion for Egypt and soon after was in Gallipoli, where he remained for 8 months. On the evacuation of the peninsula, he returned to Egypt and, now a sergeant, came home for his commission. In March 1917, he was gazetted to his old battalion and was sent to Palestine. On the 19th of April 1918, he arrived in France, his battalion being in the 52nd Division. He was killed on the Heidelberg switch line, southeast of Arras, on the 24th of August 1918, at the age of 23. His battalion had made an attack under very heavy fire and were successful in gaining their objective, which they held for some time, but were afterward compelled to withdraw to a more tenable position. Eager to save some Lewis guns which had been left, Kenneth went forward again, but was struck on the head by a bullet and killed instantly. Of fine physique and commanding appearance, he was a gallant and capable officer. A former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow.
So here we are at Vicent-Artois, British Cemetery and Memorial. Very, very impressive, large, as a big truck goes by as well. It is situated on a very, very busy road, a very main road. And as you see, I've tried to make it there to see it. It is large and a busy road. We're going to go in here. We've got quite a lot in here. The Bellahouston, a couple of Bellahouston boys. They're on the panels. We've also got some VC winners and some footballers as well. So we'll quickly get across the road and make our way in. So we've made our way across the road. It's got a bit windier as well here, but now we can really see the impressiveness of it as the cemeteries, all the graves, row on row, leading up as we come back round, leading up to the rather large columns and memorial in the distance there. So we'll head up there now and find who we're looking for. I say, well, the closer you get to it, it just becomes more and more impressive, and just obviously the thousands, including the graves that are here, and probably the thousands of names that are going to be on this wall when we do get closer to it. I will start keeping this recording as we get closer and closer to the memorial. It is very, very stunning. And the vastitude of it all as we go round in a semicircle. Each one of those little squares looks like it has loads and loads of names on it. So we will go looking for who we're looking for. So we've actually found on panel 6 W.H. Ross from Bellahouston Academy.
Private William H. Ross, son of Mr. and Mrs. Ross, 22 Carmichael Street, Govan, left the academy in February 1915 to become an engineer apprentice with Messrs. Bartley, Curl and Company Limited at Finnieston. Enlisting in February 1918, he was posted to the 2nd HLI, but was later transferred to the 5th KOSB. He had been the only 4 weeks in France when he was killed in action in Flanders on September the 2nd. Private Ross was only 18 years of age, a former pupil of Bellahouston Academy at Glasgow. Private George Henry Gibson Leckie was the son of the late Mr. John Sands Leckie and of Mrs. Leckie, 15 Clifford Street, Ibrox. Private Leckie, who was 39 years of age, was married and his widow resides at West Barnes, Hawkhead Road. Prior to his joining the army, he was an agent in the muslin and linen trade. In June 1915, he enlisted in the Glasgow Highlanders, but was later drafted to the 6th Battalion of the HLI. He was on board the troop ship Alvinia, which was torpedoed in the Mediterranean on the 1st of January 1917. With the others rescued, he was landed at Crete and afterwards proceeded to Egypt. In Palestine, he saw much severed fighting, including the attack on Gaza. Along with the 52nd Division, he came over to France early in 1918, and while taking part in the attack on Drocourt-Queant line, was killed at Croissilles on 27th of August. A former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow.
We will leave this booklet remembering the former pupils of Bellahouston Academy along with Ross as well. We'll leave it here at Lecky's name due to Ross being further up and higher, so we'll do that here. We'll lay this booklet here where it's got William Ross and George Leckie here. We'll leave it near George's name on the wall due to Williams being higher up, so anybody that does visit may well want to have a read of it. We're here in the centre of the memorial and we're paying our respects to, as we said, some footballers, some VC winners and the Bellahouston boys. We've already done the Bellahouston boys and the other ones. We've got a footballer here named Robert Stewart, who's on panel 3, and he played for Fulham and Stockport County. Also on this we have some Victoria Cross winners, which I will run through. There's a Frederick Riggs on panel 9. There's also a George Prowse who's on panel 1 and 2, which is over to my left. And then there's Leonard Lewis who's on panel 7, which is probably just slightly to my right there. So they are all remembered as we've remembered them today on this panel and this quite inspiring memorial. So we've done our respects, we're heading up. It's just quite vast. I thought I would have to video it as we're leaving the cemetery because just row and row of stones, and knowing what we've just looked at behind us with the names, lists and lists of names, it is quite in awe of it all. Well, here we've arrived at the Windmill British Cemetery, here on the side of the road on the way to Arras. There is, I'll be honest, amazing what they're doing. They are doing repairs to the cross, which is amazing work that's going on. And as we're moving in, we are looking for, we've got two souls to search here. We've got a Bellahouston boy and a footballer. So we will head in fully and look for who we're looking for. So here we have our other one. This is a Philip Smith, footballer who actually played for Burnley, Chelsea and Port Vale.
Private Hamilton Russell was the son of Mr. Alexander Russell, Bedford, Dumbreck. Before joining the Colours, he was employed on the staff of the Phosphor Bronze Company of London. He enlisted on the 8th of September 1914 and trained with the 6th Dragoon Guards Carbineers at Canterbury until May 1915. From May 1915 till August 27, 1918, with only 2 short leaves during that period, he served on the Western Front with the Guards, the Machine Gun Corps and finally in the Tank Corps. 3 days after his 30th birthday, while in a tank attack, he was killed in action at Monchy on the 27th of August 1918. A former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow.
Well, we eventually made it to Arras Memorial here in the city or town of Arras. Bit hairy coming through the traffic there. I think we've seen our first bit of traffic, or our first bit of real traffic in the last couple of days. But very, this is a momentous, a huge memorial. the First World War. Just standing here doesn't give it justice to what it is. 35,942 souls are remembered or buried here. So we'll take a way in and we'll be finding. Well, we've just walked in a little bit to it, and it's just not the wind or anything, it's just taking our breath away. The magnitude of this and the beauty of it, if you can say beauty. It is. We've also found the walls where it is, and I think what we will be doing is just reading out their names due to everything that's here. And also we will be going to the flying memorial as well, which we will. This is just, sorry if it doesn't sound right, just a bit in awe again, that's probably the word I'll be using a lot, in awe. It's taking all this in.
Corporal James Cairncross Fulton, RND, and Private Robert Edwin Fulton, 6 Black Watch, were the only sons of Mr and Mrs Robert J.C. Fulton, Glen Helen, Westerton, Drumchapel, and late of 9 Kirkwood Street, Ibrox. Corporal James Fulton was in the War Office, Whitehall, London, at the outbreak of war, and though under no necessity of volunteering for military service, he considered it his duty to enlist. And in March 1915, at the age of 18, he joined the Hawk Battalion of the Royal Naval Division. In May of the same year, he was sent to Gallipoli. In the withdrawal of the troops from the peninsula, his battalion was transferred to France. While trying to rescue his battalion Sergeant Major, who had been severely wounded, he was killed on the 24th of March 1918. He was 21 years of age. His younger brother Robert, 19, was killed in action north of the River Marne on the 28th of July 1918 and is buried in Shambrechi British Cemetery. A former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow. Private John Haggart was the third son of Mr Alexander Haggart, 230 Paisley Road West, Ibrox. On leaving the academy in February 9/11, he became an apprentice draftsman with Messrs G and A Harvey, Woodville Street, Govan, and on completing his apprenticeship, enlisted in September 1916. He went to France on the last day of the same year and was reported missing on the Somme front on the 23rd of April 1917. Private Haggart was 21 years of age, a former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow. Lance Corporal John Campbell, who had just completed his 20th year, was the son of Mr and Mrs Charles Campbell, 38 Greenhead Drive, South Govan. Of a genial and sunny nature, he was greatly missed when he left school in November 1915 to join the Glasgow Highlanders. In July 1916, he went to France in the Lewis gun section of the battalion, and after 10 months of active service was killed by shell fire on May the 20th, 1917 at Fontaine-le-Croisière near Arras. Lance Corporal Campbell was a good footballer and athlete. He excelled as a runner and was chosen to represent the Academy at other sports meetings. A former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow. Private James Chaplin was the son of Mr and Mrs James Chaplin, Clarion Cottage, Cardonald. He was a medical student at Glasgow University in his first year when he enlisted in the A Training Battalion in February 1917. After training at Montrose and Cromer, he was sent to France in January 1918. During the German offensive between 21st and 27th of March 1918, he was killed in action, but exact details have never been received. Private Chaplin, who was only 19 years of age, was a lad of most genial disposition. He was an enthusiastic player in the school football team. A former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow. Lance Corporal John Muir was the eldest son of Mr and Mrs John Muir, 51 Clifford Street, Ibrox. On leaving the academy in June 1911, He served his apprenticeship as an electrical engineer with Messrs Loudon Brothers and Company, and was afterwards employed as a draftsman with Messrs Stevenson and McGuffey Consulting Engineers. In October 1915, he enlisted in the Lovat Scouts and soon gained the rank of sergeant. After training with the Lovat Scouts for some time, he was transferred to the 6th Cameron Highlanders, and as Lance Corporal he went with them to France on the 30th of August 1916 and saw much action service there during the following winter. On the 11th of April 1917, he was killed in action at Arras at the age of 20. Jack, as he was known, Muir, was one of the finest swimmers in the history of the school and won many prizes in this, his favourite recreation. A former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow. Second Lieutenant Robert Archibald Steele was the son of Mr. A.B. Steele, 7 Kingsland Drive, Cardonald, and 54 Gordon Street, Glasgow. He left school when barely 16 years of age so that he might play his part. In spite of his youth, he was enrolled in the 7th Scottish Rifles, and 10 days after joining the 3rd Battalion of that corps, he was promoted to Lance Corporal. After training at Ripon, he obtained his discharge, but a few weeks later he joined the Glasgow Yeomanry and was sent to train in Aldershot. After being transferred to the 5th Dragoon Guards, he was sent to the Arras front line as a dispatch rider and signaller while in his 17th year. Sent back to England to undergo training for his commission, he was ultimately gazetted to the Rifle Brigade, from which regiment he volunteered to the Royal Air Force, and in due time was sent to the squadron to the Bopami Albert section early in March 1918. Shortly after, while engaged in the daily task of bombing the German infantry in the endeavour of their army to check the big enemy advances, he became detached from his squadron, and 3 or 4 days later his father was informed that he had been posted as missing. Despite all inquiries, no definitive news of his fate had been obtained, but word from Switzerland has been received that about that date a British fighting plane was brought down in flames within the German lines, and that no trace had been found of the occupants. What was the fate of this gallant lad can only be assumed. Either he was burned to death or, as has happened in many cases, the end was hastened by a leap from a burning plane. A former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow. Captain James Glenn was the second son of the late Mr. John Glenn, 14 Hillington Gardens, Cardonald. Captain Glenn was a teacher in Lamhall Street School when, on the 16th of September 1914, he enlisted in the 17th HLI. After training at Troon, he went to France in November. On the 4th of August, he was gazetted to the 5th Scottish Rifles, but on returning to France was attached to the 2nd Scottish Rifles. In July 1917, for gallantry, he was promoted on the field to the rank of captain. Towards the end of the year, he was transferred to the RAF, where he qualified first as observer and then as pilot scout. On the 1st July 1918, he crossed to France and was attached to the 70th Squadron RAF. He went on patrol to attack enemy balloons on the 16th of September and failed to return. A former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow.
As we've done all the remembrance to the Bellahouston boys, we'll leave this little booklet that we've made up with all of them in it and a little story about them. So as we paid our respects to the Bellahouston boys, we'll also pay our respects to the footballers that are here. Quite a lot of them, so what I will just do is say their names. So we've got John Allen, Thomas Cairns, Walter Coulter, John Ford, William George, Benjamin Green, Richard Harker, William Jackson, Peter Johnston, Angus MacLeod, David Phillip, George Ramsey, John Ramsey, George Richardson, Harold Sparks, Arthur Stringfellow, Walter Till, Alexander Turnbull, Robert Whiting, John Williams, all here on the memorials on the walls in this amazing memorial. Also staying with that theme, our VC winners who we've paid our respects to, and they were Lieutenant Richard Jones, Sergeant John Erskine, Captain David Hurst, Second Lieutenant John Harrison, Corporal George Jarrett, Sergeant Albert White, Sergeant Alexander Edwards, Second Lieutenant Ernest Beale, Second Lieutenant Basil Horsfall, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver Watson, and Second Lieutenant Bernard Cassidy. Also on the Flying Service Memorial there was a Major Leon Hawker and a Major Edward Mannock. Also special note here to this gentleman on the Flying Memorial is a Mr. Ramsey, George Ramsey, who played for Rangers Football Club. Okay, so we're out of Aris in the main town and back into the country again. Came across this one, Bienvillers Military Cemetery, I would say. Again, it just shows you the CWGC don't stop. They're here working, cutting the grass and just making sure these graveyards are in immaculate condition. So we're in here, we've got three stones to visit, a Bellahouston boy, a footballer and a VC winner. Quite a large one, as you can see, and the lads that are working on it are up the far end there. So,
Second Lieutenant Walter Logan of 13 Donnelly Gardens, Ibrox, enlisted in the Scottish Rifles in February 1915. He received rapid promotion and was acting company sergeant major when he received his commission 7 months later in the same regiment. He was lecturing in musketry at Ripon when he volunteered for active service and was subsequently attached to the South Staffords. While leading his men in Bienville, France, through a heavy German barrage to the relief of another platoon on December the 13th, 1916, he was hit by a shell and killed almost instantaneously. Prior to enlisting, Mr. Logan was a teacher under the Dalserf School Board, a former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow.
here we find our VC winner, a Lieutenant Colonel Walter Brodie. He actually won this VC a way back 4 years prior to his death on the 11th of November 1914, when he led a gallant bayonet charge in the trenches to clear out the trenches of Germans, where almost 80 of them were killed and 51 prisoners taken. 4 years later, still serving and still fighting, he died on the 23rd of August 1918. Here we have footballer John Finlay, footballer for Newcastle and Vale of Leven. So we've arrived back in the heart of the Somme, and we're here around the Beaumont area, where there's the cross of the 51st Highland Division and the battalion, the Argyllshire battalions that fought here. If I take you round, you go round here, we've got Sunken Lane just there, and if we come right round, that's the Beaumont Military Cemetery just in there. The spire you can see is in the distance is Beaumont, and if I just go up to that tree line, that is Hawthorne Ridge. Well, the start of the Battle of the Somme, you could say, started there because they set the explosion 10 minutes before the 7:30 start on July the 1st. So we're standing here, if you're looking at that tree line there, that is actually Hawthorne Ridge. So on the first day, and I'm actually standing in the spot where George Millins, the presenter or the filmmaker of that famous film and at the start of the Battle of the Somme, this is exactly where he stood to film the explosion at Hawthorne Ridge. As you can see, and that where he filmed, where the soldiers were going up and straight across the line, is all that line there. So yeah, still got the hairs in the back of my neck. I'd been here last year and again this year, and I've still got the hairs in the back of my neck standing where George Millings has stood. So we're now heading up another area where George Millings had taken photographs as we head up Sunken Lane. It's that photograph where we had all the Lancashire regiments sitting, smiling, waiting to go over the top here in Sunken Lane. Looks like they're doing some work to it, cutting back quite a bit of the branches and whatnot, as it's obviously become a little bit overgrown. Also, as we're halfway up Sunken Lane, there is a little memorial to the, I believe, the Lancashire Regiment, the Fusiliers who went up over the top on that day on July the 1st. So now standing in the exact, or thereabouts, the exact spot where George Millings photographed those soldiers all sitting, having a cigarette, laughing, the bombers, waiting just long before they went over the top. So still staying in Sunken Lane, this is what those soldiers would have probably experienced going up and over as they come up over the top of the trench and into the field. Now, as we come out into the field, this is where they were technically cut down. Now, just soon, that little wooded area, the large wooded area across there, all along that were Germans' machine gun posts. And as soon as they tried to cut this field, they just cut them down completely. So as you can see, that is probably about, what, 200 yards? 300 yards away. So as they ran out, the Lancashires, they were all in that tree line. There was machine guns and just technically wiped them out. So as we cross the road here into Beaumont Hamel, Newfoundland, Newfoundland Memorial. Again, another famous landmark here on the Somme. Very, very large Spanish area as we head in. This being, as they say, very, very preserved area with trenches, as you can see, the original trenches all still in situ. Will be very windy, so hopefully you will be able to hear me as I give you a commentary as we're coming out onto the main bit. So here we are as we come up onto it, that very famous monument for the memorial to all the Canadians who fought here on the Somme. As you see, there's some trenches that they've redone and it's enhanced that they can walk down. They're actually closed at the moment, so you can't actually walk down them. But if you look out onto the field, and the various bumps that you see, for as far as the eye can see, they were all trenches. Right up to that monument in the sheep, they do allow the sheep to still graze on some parts of the field, but this is now owned by all of this, you see, the Canadians. So these trenches here, men on the 1st of July will be gathering mass here, ready to come across no man's land and attack the trenches, which, if you can see behind the sheep there, is where the German trenches were. So as you can see here, these are the forward trenches and still got the posts, some metal in place as we're ready to go. And if you just swing this round, those trenches there, and then there was the battlefield there, just right over, not far away where the German trenches as well, and all the way right through the back there. So as we're heading down this path, some more original trenches there, and then just over that lump is where no man's land was, and then just slightly forward to that, roughly where just before the sheep are, was where the German line was held. So as you see, it was not far away for them to travel, but sadly they couldn't get there due to the heavy machine guns that were firing at them that day. Right, hopefully you can hear it. The wind is very strong. So what you've got here is the trenches, Commonwealth trenches, so that British Canadian, various in here, and there was the front line trench there. So that is actually the front line trench. Before no man's land. So if I just slightly swing here and go round, you see this part here is no man's land. And then if you just see the slight shading of colour where it changes, so you've got that fence to keep the sheep in, and then you've got a darker green going into slightly lighter green. That lighter green was the German trench. So as you see, not far, what, 100 yards, if that. In easy terms, a pitching wedge, for all you golfers, a bit of a pitching wedge, 9 iron to there. So that gives you the sort of idea, 150 yards is the only place they had to cross. That's rather crater where obviously the shells were dropping, some of them dropping short. But yeah, so that little light area and the little brown, you can see sort of brown mounds of dirt, that is actually the German. Oh here, sorry, we've actually come up and we're actually at the German trenches now. So that's how long it took. You can see parts of it here, you can see some of it here. These are a lot more where the shells were dropping into the German trenches, so that the Commonwealth soldiers could do their attack. But the main line is just on that lighter coloured grass was the German trenches. So we come here to one of, I believe, one of four, 3 or 4 cemeteries here on the Newfoundland Memorial area. This is Y Ravine Cemetery, housing various nationalities of the Commonwealth, all in that, immaculately kept as well. And we'll head up to, heading up now to Y Ravine. So here we are, top of this hill. Hopefully you can hear me because the wind is quite strong. But here we are now in the heart of the German trench system. And this is what Commonwealth soldiers were trying to achieve, to reach here and take this ground. Although sadly they didn't make it. But yeah, this is all German trenches, still preserved. Still, some of them still with original steel posts to hold the walls up. This is all German trench. Again, another little view from it. I'd say you can't go in them. It is all wired off. They do let the sheep, because the sheep will not go down into them. They'll just stay on the grass grazing it. The reason being, they don't want you going down because you don't know what you may find. Because obviously they've not been fully checked. There could be unexploded bombs, anything down there. And here is the original Y Ravine. So that is the bit that takes you down into the ravine. This is where all the German soldiers would have massed up, came up the top here, and then filtered in to all of the trenches. Y Ravine, where it got. So again, we're heading down here. Small monument here of a cross, which this cross is erected in memory of the officers and NCOs of the 51st Highland Division who fell at High Wood on July 16. Again, obviously a lot of, when we're out here, High Wood, there was quite a few Bellahouston boys who also fell at High Wood. But we're walking down here, there is a viewing point at the bottom of this which will give you a look at Y Ravine. Now when you see this, there was all little, all filled in now, but down here massed thousands and thousands of German soldiers in little, the ground was all cut out where they had little resting areas, and this is Y Ravine, and all the way up there, so they all filtered up on the day of the war, the battle. They were massing here out of harm's way, just resting up, getting ready for the offensive that was going to take place. And as I turn round, you can see the monument, Scottish monument, the kiltie on top of the tower, which is erected here, also at Newfoundland. As much as it's the Canadian memorial, there is a Scottish monument based up here. So we came up the stairs to the monument, as you see, a Highlander. Glory in God, the lasting remembrance of all ranks of the 51st Highland Division in the war 1914 to 18 gave their lives, and this monument was rededicated on the 13th of July 1958. So, very stunning monument, right in the heart of the trench area, the German trench area. As we read that, Scotland by this monument in the land of her ancient ally and comrades in arms commemorates those officers and men of the 51st Highland Division who fell in the Great War. Beautiful, beautiful monument. As I say, we're up and in the trench area. I say the local farmer has been allowed, even though this land is owned by Canada, to graze his sheep. It keeps the grass down, but they will not go in, and if they did fall there, the farmer will come and take them out. But generally they don't go near those trenches. Maybe they know something as well, what's hidden down there. So, but again, allowed to graze on parts of it, keeping the grass though. Right, we're coming up to another one of the cemeteries here in Newfoundland. I believe, and please don't hold me to this, but I believe this one is Hunter's Cemetery, and I believe it's the only cemetery on the Western Front that actually the graves are all in a circle. So rather than rows and rows of graves, they've put them all round in a circle around the cross. So I do believe it is, but whether I'm correct on that, and maybe somebody will correct me, but I believe that is the only cemetery on the Western Front that has the graves all in a circle. So heading up to the final cemetery here at Newfoundland, and it was a mass grave. Apart from those sort of 3, 6 and 10 here, the rest, it's a mass grave, as you can see by the stones all being closely tight. Mass grave. And this one, I think it's called Hawthorne. Is this the Hawthorne Ridge one? Yes. Hawthorne Ridge Cemetery number 2, yes. Number 1 is to the back of me. Sorry, if I look here, number 1 is just sort of over in the distance. Where those trees are, those 2 trees through the middle of the larger trees here, that's Hawthorne Ridge 1. So we're heading back up to the entrance. As you can see, hopefully in this, we're walking up this tree line path, and right in the middle of it is the Canadian Memorial. A stunning bit of memorial, and I believe the stones came all the way from Canada, that they shipped them over to build that memorial. Sort of granite stones, I think it is, but they all came from Canada. As I said, just thinking there, I don't think they're made of granite, but I do believe the stones, and I will, I can be corrected and I will research this, but I think the actual boulders, the stones they used to build the memorial did actually come over from Canada. I won't say they're granite because obviously granite's only in Aberdeen, but yes, the actual stones, they took them from Canada and brought them here to the Newfoundland Memorial on the Somme. If I'm wrong, please do accept my apologies, but I do think I heard that somewhere that was the case. So yeah, so we're back in the British side of the trenches, or there or thereabouts, and yet there is still some large craters, so it wasn't just all the British bombing the Germans did bomb back as well, as you can see with some of these deep craters 100 years later, and they're still rather deep as well. So here we go, we're looking back over the battlefield again, no man's land. Up there to the right is the Commonwealth trenches, and just down there the German. So a closer look at those rather large boulder stones that, as I said, that make up this memorial. Very inspiring, and the moose at the top overlooking the battlefield. Right, well, I just had a little chat with one of the guides here, And yeah, I got partly it right. Hopefully you can hear me. I got part of it right. This stone here is the one that came from Newfoundland in Canada. The actual monument with the moose on it, don't believe they were from Canada, but this one was actually chiselled out and brought over from Newfoundland in Canada. So partly right, partly wrong, but please enjoy the video of us walking around Newfoundland Memorial Park. So here we are, Frankfurt Trench, cemetery number 11 it says. So going in, small one on top of the hill, but here we have two Bellahouston boys, both of them buried, both of them as we head down to find them. And I believe they're all at the front here as well, because I've just signed that it said D1 there, so we got them all at the front.
Sergeant Effingham Deans Hutchison was the youngest son of Mr. Benjamin Hutchison, M.A., Rector Emeritus of Govan High School, and Mrs. Hutchison, Aubert Cambuslang. Dean spent all of his childhood days at Bellahouston Academy and was serving his apprenticeship as a dentist when he enlisted in May 1915 at the early age of 16. He had taken part in the Great Somme Battle in 1916 and was expected home to train for his commission when he was instantaneously killed at Beaumont Hamel on the morning of September 18th. He was buried at Serry, south of Albert. Sergeant Hutchison, who was deservedly popular among his many friends in Bellahouston, was only 18 years of age at the time of his death. A former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Andrew Miller Ferguson was the younger son of the late George Ferguson, ex-provost of Govan, and of Mrs. Ferguson, Trinidad Villa, Bellahouston. Though of delicate physique, he succeeded in joining the 6th HLI in September 1914 and trained with this battalion in Fifeshire. A serious illness due to exposure invalided him home for many months, but on his recovery he rejoined his regiment and after serving at home for a time was sent to France in September 1916 and then drafted into the 16th HLI. He was in the latter stages of the Somme battle, as when on the point of being gazetted for a commission when he fell in action near Beaumont Hamel on November the 18th, 1916. Private Ferguson was 35 years of age and was employed in the Paisley Road branch of the National Branch of Scotland, a former pupil of Bellahouston Academy, Glasgow.
So in the centre of Albert now, as you see, that the very amazing church in Albert with that even more amazing steeple at the top of it. Lots of little monuments here. We're going to head into the Somme 1916 museum, but we're in the square getting ready. All the flags are up as always. The main square of Albert. So we're heading into the museum of the Somme 1916. This is the entrance. Once again, as I said, we will not be a video in the museum. This is for somewhere where you can come, pay and get your own experiences from it. So this is the entrance to the museum, and we will see you when we get out at the other end. Good evening and welcome to the end of day 3 and the end of our last full day on the Somme. Again, been very busy, very windy, very cold and very busy. We are a little bit, and I will admit, we're a little bit behind. We haven't completely got to all the places we were meant to get to today. So we've rescheduled a little bit for tomorrow, where we'll pick it up, because tomorrow being day 4 and moving day. So we will be moving from the Albert area up to Ypres, but not just driving there. We will be taking in a load of cemeteries, a load of memorials, and various other little things like that. But that again for tomorrow. So please enjoy today's video. Say in places there's been a lot of unable to hear due to the wind. It has been quite strong in areas that we visited today. But please enjoy it. Again, apologies for my French. I don't speak French. and I'm really struggling with the names of the cemeteries. But, you know, other than that, enjoy the video, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a comment, let us know what we're doing, if we're doing it okay, if you want us to change anything, and just generally enjoy. So end of day 3, and I'm off to bed. Good night.